The last order given at that grave was not about the Khan, it was about us. Every man who had carried him up to that mountain, every man who had dug the earth, every man who had stood in the dark holding a torch while the greatest conqueror the world had ever seen was lowered into the ground. We were all supposed to die before sunrise. That was the arrangement. That had always been the arrangement. The secret of where the Genghis Khan was buried was worth more than any of our lives, and the men who made that calculation had not made it carelessly. They had made it the way the Mongol Empire made every decision, completely without sentiment, with the absolute certainty of people who had never once confused mercy with wisdom. Nobody who knew was supposed to leave that mountain. I knew. I left. And I have been running from that fact in one way or another for the rest of my life. My name is Chagatai, not the Khan's son. That is a different man and a different story. I was a nobody who shared a name with a somebody, which is the kind of coincidence that follows you your entire life at exactly the wrong moment. I was a torchbearer, a servant in the outer household of the great Khan's personal retinue. Not a warrior, not a general, not one of those men whose names got recorded in the histories that came after. I carried light. That was my function, in processions, in ceremonies, in the long dark hours of moving an empire's court from one place to another across the vast open steppe. I was one of the men who made sure the darkness stayed back. I grew up near Karakorum, the Mongol capital, the son of a man who had served the Khan's household before me. My father carried light also. It was what our family did. We were torch people, not important enough to be remembered, not unimportant enough to be left behind. He told me once, my father, that the safest place in the world was directly beside great power, but not so close that great power ever noticed you specifically. I thought about that advice a great deal during the weeks after the Khan died. I think about it still. Genghis Khan died in the summer of 1227. I want to tell you who he actually was before I tell you what happened to his body, because the word conqueror does not come close to containing him. He was born Temujin, the son of a minor tribal chief on the Mongolian steppe, into a world where survival itself was not guaranteed from one winter to the next. His father was poisoned by enemies when Temujin was a child. His family was abandoned by their own clan and left to survive alone in one of the harshest landscapes on earth. He survived. Not just survived, he learned the steppe the way a wolf learns it, completely without illusion, understanding its cruelty as clearly as he understood its possibilities. By the time he was declared Genghis Khan, universal ruler, in 1206, he had united dozens of warring Mongol tribes under a single authority for the first time in history, not through politics, through a combination of military brilliance, absolute loyalty to those who served him well, and a completeness of violence toward those who opposed him that his enemies found almost impossible to comprehend until it was too late to do anything about it. At its peak, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, the largest contiguous land empire in human history, built in a single lifetime by a man who started with nothing on an open plain. He did not die in battle. He died of causes that historians still argue about. Illness, a fall from his ass, a wound that wouldn't heal. The accounts differ. What does not differ is the timing. The Khan was in the middle of a campaign when death found him. He was 70 years old and still in the field, still moving, still refusing to stop, because stopping was not something the world's greatest conqueror had ever fully learned to do. He died as he had lived, in motion. The moment the Khan died, the problem became the burial, not grief, not succession. Though succession would become its own catastrophe soon enough. The burial was the problem. Genghis Khan had been specific. He did not want a monument, no tomb, no marker, no location that the enemies could find and desecrate, no place that the future generations could gather and use to claim connection to his power. He wanted to disappear into the earth, the way the steppe itself disappears into the sky, completely, without urge, without the kind of fixed point that weakness tends to gather around. He wanted to be buried in secret, in a place no one outside the burial party would ever know. And he wanted that secret kept the only way a secret of that magnitude can never truly be kept, by ensuring that everyone who knew it could never tell anyone. The logistics of this were not subtle. The burial party would arrive to the chosen location, a mountain in the Khentii range that the Khan had loved in life, a place he had visited and spoken of, with a particular quietness that powerful men reserve for the few things they genuinely hold sacred. They would dig, they would bury, they would perform the rites, and then the soldiers escorting them would kill everyone who had participated. And then, according to some accounts, those soldiers themselves would be killed by another group, to prevent even the executioners from carrying the secret back to the living world. 10,000 horses were to be driven across the burial site to erase every track, every mark, every physical evidence that the ground had ever been disturbed. A river would be diverted over the grave. The mountain would swallow him, and the mountain would give nothing back. This was the plan. I was one of the torchbearers chosen for the burial procession. I was not told about the second part of the plan until we were already on the mountain. Moving a dead Khan across the Mongolian steppe is not a quiet operation. It was a cortege, a formal procession of horses and guards and officials and servants, moving across open ground for days through summer heat that made the hair shimmer at the edges. The Khan's body has been prepared, wrapped, placed in the care of the men responsible for that particular sacred duty. We did not speak of where we were going. That was the first rule established before we set out. No discussion of the destination, no questions about routes or distances or how long the journey would take. You followed, you kept pace, you did not ask. I had been in formal processions before, ceremonies, military departures, the arrivals and departures of foreign delegations whose names I never knew. I knew how to move in formation, how to hold the torch steady while walking in pace, how to be present without being noticeable. I was good at not being noticeable. It was in fact the skill my entire life had been built around. The journey took several days. I will not say more precisely than that, because even now, even at the distance of everything that has happened since, some part of me that is not courage, but is perhaps something close to it, refuses to make that particular piece of information available. Some secrets are still worth keeping, even after so much time. The mountain, when we reached it, was beautiful. I had not expected it to be beautiful. I had prepared myself for something that masked the weight of what we were doing. Grey, forbidding, the kind of landscape that announces its own seriousness. Instead, there was green, grass on the lower slopes moving in the wind, trees high up, the sound of water somewhere nearby, the kind of a place a man might choose to come back to, the kind of a place a great man might choose, in some deep and private part of himself, to stay. The digging took hours. I stood at the perimeter and held my torch and watched from 40 yards away while the other men did the work that needed doing. The flame pulled sideways in the mountain wind. I cupped my hand around it when the gust came. That was the whole of my contribution to the burial of the greatest conqueror the world had ever produced. A cupped hand around the flame. The hole got deeper. I could tell from the way the men's shoulder dropped below the surface line, inch by inch, until wholly their heads were visible, and then, not even that. Nobody spoke. That was the thing I remember most clearly about those hours. Not the cold, not the sound of digging, Not the way the torchlight made strange shapes of the trees around us. The silence, 40 men on a mountain in the dark, doing the most significant thing any of us would ever do, and not one word exchanged between any of us that I heard. When the digging stopped, I knew without being told, the quality of the silence changed. They brought him down from where the body had been resting, and I will not tell you what that looked like, because some things I've decided are not mine to give away. It was there, then it was in the ground. This is what I will say about it. What I was not prepared for was the sound of the earth going back in, soil on soil, the most ordinary sound, the sound of any grave being closed anywhere in the world on any ordinary day. Except this was not any grave, and for the rest of my life, whenever I have heard that sound, a spade turning earth, a child digging in dirt, anything, something in me goes back to that mountain every single time. The ground closed over him, the mountain did not shudder, the sky did not change, the wind kept pulling at my torch, the same way it had been pulling at it all evening. The earth received him the same way it receives everyone, without any acknowledgement of who he had been. That indifference was the most unsettling thing I witnessed on that mountain, not what came after that. The ground simply closed. Then came the order. The senior official didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He turned to the soldiers and nodded once, the kind of nod that means the next thing on the list is ready to happen. And that was all. I was 40 years away and I saw it clearly. I understood it immediately. Not because I had been told, because I had spent 11 years learning to read the gestures of powerful men from a careful distance. And that nod had only one possible meaning on a mountain where we had all just been told, without words, that the most important secret in the empire now lived inside our heads. The soldiers moved inward toward the grave, toward the diggers, toward the officials, toward the men standing close, away from me first. I had perhaps 30 seconds. I dropped the torch straight down, not threw it, I dropped it, so it fell without noise into the grass and guttered rather than flared. So the light simply stopped rather than announcing where it had been. One step back, then two. I had noted the tree line when we arrived, not because I was planning anything. 11 years near power teaches you to know where the hedges are without deciding to know. It becomes the same as breathing. You just always know. 3 steps and I was in the first trees. I stood still, listened. The sounds from the clearing told me enough. I turned and ran down that mountain in complete darkness. No torch, no path, no idea what was below me. Running on the instruction that requires no thought, and no courage, and no particular quality of character. Just leave, whatever it costs. Leave. Many years after that night, I was a dead man who was still breathing. That is the only honest way to describe the years that followed. I moved west, then further west. I changed my name twice, my trade once, my face. As much as a face can be changed by time and weather, and the deliberate cultivation of a beard I had never worn before, I became a trader. Horses, which I knew, and then later other things. I moved through territories that the Mongol Empire controlled, because there was no place the Mongol Empire did not control, which meant there was no safe direction to run in the normal sense of the word. I simply had to become a person who had not been on that mountain. I got better at it over time. The face helps, eventually. I do not look the same as the young man who held a torch in the Khentii mountains in the summer of 1227. Time is thorough. It changes a person more completely than any disguise, which is either a comfort or sadness, depending on which day you are thinking about it. I married. I had children who do not know the story, and will not, unless one of them finds this account someday and recognizes the weight of it. I have lived a long life, a life I was not supposed to have. Every morning of it understood as borrowed time, which is actually not so different from what every other life is. And I've thought about this more than perhaps any other thought I have had. Everyone's time is borrowed. Most people simply don't have a specific date from which the borrowing started. I have that date, that mountain, that dark. They have searched for his tomb for 800 years. 800 years of searching by people with motives ranging from scholarly reverence to pure greed to a genuine historical need to understand one of the most consequential lives ever lived, and nobody has found anything. Not a marker, not a disturbed section of ground, not a fragment of anything that could be definitely placed in that burial. The location of Genghis Khan's tomb is the greatest geographical mystery in human history. Archaeologists have surveyed the Khentii mountains. Satellite imaging has been deployed. Ground-penetrating radar. Every tool the centuries between that burial and now have produced. Nothing. The mountain kept its secret. The river that was diverted has long since returned to its natural course, or perhaps a different course entirely. The way rivers decide their own geography over centuries without asking anyone's permission. The 10,000 horses did their work too well. He is there, somewhere in that mountain, or near it, beneath water that used to be there. He is there, waiting in the ground the way powerful things wait, without impatience, without anxiety, without the need for anyone else to know. People ask, when they ask, which is not often because there were very few people I had ever trusted enough to tell their story to, whether I feel guilty for surviving. It is not a simple question. The men who died on that mountain were not criminals. They were servants, workers, professionals of various kinds who had been selected for a task and then selected for death by the logic of a secret that was worth more than any of them individually. I was selected for the same death. The only difference between me and them is darkness and an outer edge and the specific geography of where I happened to be standing when the soldiers moved. Not virtue, not cleverness, not any quality that makes surviving feel like something I earned. I was just standing in the right place, which is the most uncomfortable way to be alive. Knowing that you are alive, not because of who you are, not because of where you happen to be standing at a specific moment on a specific night, on a mountain that nobody is supposed to know about. I have lived with that. It does not get lighter with time, it just gets more familiar. I was a torchbearer. I carried light for powerful people in dark places, and I did not ask questions, and I did not make myself memorable, and I followed my father's advice about the correct distance to maintain from greatness. And then one night, on a mountain in the Khentii range, I held my torch over the open grave of the man who had conquered the known world, and I watched the earth close over him, and I heard an order given, and I ran. My name is Chagatai. I was not supposed to survive to tell you this. The fact that I did is either the best thing that has ever happened to me, or the thing I have never fully made peace with. After all these years, I still cannot tell you which. What I can tell you is this: he's still up there, in that mountain, in the dark, and the mountain is not telling anyone anything. It never has. It never will.